Okay, well, thank you for having me. Everyone, my name is Michael Baena. I'm a LearnKey graduate, data security analyst. I'm also the Security Plus tutor. I help out with the MTA security, network fundamentals, and then I also assist. Recently, I started assisting with the operating system fundamentals. I believe that's what it's called. It's 349. And I'm also an associate of ISC squared that's going to lead in CISSP once I hit that 5-year mark. Okay. So a little bit about myself. Um, I grew up here in Houston. Well, I say here, but that's where I'm at. I'm currently in Houston. I enlisted into the Army 2012 to 2016. I originally enlisted as a medic, believe it or not. Most of my experience was in computers. Um, Funny thing, I didn't even own one until I was about 21. Um, but I learned how to fix them mainly due to, I guess you could say it almost runs in the family. Um, my father actually worked for Compaq and built motherboards for Compaq. And so I kind of got to see the whole thing about soldering and things like that. You see the home that I grew up in there, and on the bottom right, that's how I look like now. Uh, that was me excited on the first day of my job as a data security analyst. Not soon, um, not not too close to the day that I graduated from LearnKey. And honestly, I don't think I could have gotten that job without LearnKey's assistance. Okay, so why did I choose tech? Well, um, it's less physically demanding. You know, it's a lot easier on your body to sit down or stand up, depending on how you have your desk. Um, it seemed a lot more stable. Pasadena, Texas, they call it Stinkadena because of all the oil fields and everything that's out here. So that tends to be off and on depending on the jobs and the seasons. And I did a little bit of sandblasting um, back when I was about 18, and so I kind of didn't like it. Um, I still like computers a lot. It's an area of interest while I was in the Army. In the Army, they found out that I fixed computers and was really good with them. So for a while, they would put me to do some Excel worksheets and work with Access Database and create a database for the training support company in San Antonio. It was pretty funny that I actually got to do that. It was fun. It seemed like a good challenge as well because it was an area that I wasn't too familiar with. I only knew how to help with applications and fix the computers. You know, take them apart, put them back together. You know, doing A+, you get to learn all of that. But I always wanted to see what's the more advanced stuff, so I thought it'd be a good challenge. About why LearnKey? I went to LearnKey because some of the companies where I was working at, they wanted certs. They didn't at Rackspace. They really didn't care about a college degree, and I was currently enrolled in college. So I said, you know what? What the hey? Let me go ahead and enroll. So I spoke with my VRE counselor, and I was able to get accepted to go to LearnKey, and so that's how I started. I also heard that there's a big giant community of uh, like-minded people. Uh, Being in college, it was a bit of a shock. Um, I was in the Army from 18 to 22, 23, and it was a bit of a shock going to college and seeing a different environment. So um, when I spoke with my VRE counselor, he suggested go to an area where there's a lot more veterans. So LearnKey provided that, and definitely is something that I like the most out of it. I get to meet a lot of other veterans and hear stories, and um, I feel like it's educational and therapeutic to be able to speak with so many people from so many backgrounds. Okay, so as I was job hunting, I got a list of certain things that people people or companies are looking for, and these are things that I try to keep in mind as a checklist of how I want to build myself. Um, and it is quite a bit. If you do have some of these, great. I know there's a lot of people that have been in the industry for a while, and that's awesome. But if you just started transitioning into this area of expertise, don't be afraid. It takes time. But okay, so let's go. A lot of the times they want a degree. Well, yeah, almost 90% of the time they always list a degree or equivalent experience with some sort of certification. Some companies will say we want somebody with bachelor's, with 2 years experience, and in this type of position. And then we'll also accept any of these certificates with 1 year or with some knowledge about this area, as long as you have the certificates. And that's more towards where I lean to. Um, it does cut you off on certain areas, but as far as getting you in the door, certs were a great thing, and that's exactly what it did for me. It got me in the door, and I couldn't have asked for a better opportunity than where I'm currently working at. It's a really good place. So some of the certs that were listed: CCNA, CISSP, CEH, Security Plus, Network Plus. There's some GX certifications, but those are so expensive. And I would say those are nice to haves, not really that you need to have those certs, because as far as foundations, the certs that LearnKey provides are enough. GX certifications are about $7,000 just so you can get a little nameplate. And I'm not trying to downplay them; the content's great, but if you're just starting, I don't think that's something that you need to worry about. And a lot of times, if they have a GX cert, they have these alternatives, which are great. IT is usually the jack of all trades, so you want to make sure you know about Linux and about Windows, how to work those areas. I can't tell you how many times that I've been going through some interviews and they would tell me, well, do you know how to use Linux, or do you know how to administer Linux? And at the beginning, I didn't know. I thought I did, coming out from the Army. Oh, I did Excel. I fixed computers over there. Oh, I'm very familiar with Windows, but definitely there it goes deeper than you think, and you want to make sure you familiarize yourself with that. Another thing was learning Microsoft Excel. I cannot stress how much Excel tends to it tends to make you stand out, and that seems to be the case everywhere I've gone. This was at Rackspace, this was at in the Army, this is where I'm currently working at now. It was actually one of the reasons why on my yearly review, they actually thought it was, oh my God, this guy's so cool. And I was just doing simple Excel stuff that you can learn online. And so just watching those videos would be great. Excel, for some reason, or I mean, it's the best way to manage information and present it in a readable way, so everyone appreciates you when you know Excel. And there's so many different ways that you can apply it. And if you're creative enough, I was able to make a dashboard that I was able to view the performance of other employees. And it was mainly, I was trying to help out a friend who passes out tickets, and I was like, here you go, man, I made this little tool for you so you can pass out tickets, and you can see who you've given enough tickets to so you can give tickets to other people. Well, management got caught a whiff of it, and they never had a tool like that before, so they loved it. That was a big thing. So it's almost like a double-edged sword, learning with Excel. Did I find gaining more experience, i.e. internship? I haven't actually done an internship. I've seen people come and intern at my job, and honestly, it's great because it's a paid internship at some areas, and those are awesome. But a lot of the times when you go do internships, it's like a luck of the draw. It's like, does this company take interns seriously and give them work? Or I think there was one area and where I was working, where they just had them organize papers, but they were getting paid well, and they were just organizing papers. So that, I'm not too sure about that. Another thing would be programming. If you just learn one programming language, you pretty much can transfer that knowledge into any programming language. Um, that being said, you know, some languages are harder to learn, but if you know the basics on for one language, you typically learn the quirks. So every different language likes a way that they get to be treated. So then you get to learn, oh, this language likes it when I put words in this manner, or this language likes the arguments to be put in this area, or things like that. So a lot of the popular ones that I saw around whenever I was applying, and I would apply for help desk, system administration, and no, mainly help desk and system administration. I just got lucky with this data security analyst because of Network Plus and Security Plus. That made me stand out. But uh, it seems to be very popular just learning a programming language. I guess they have you do either PowerShell if you're doing system administration. If you're doing some sort of tech support, or you're helping take care of the company's computers, some places have more than just one operating system or one environment. So sometimes they expect you to know. Sometimes they expect you to know that stuff. Okay, so obstacles that I have faced, and I'm gonna present these in like, okay, this is the obstacle I faced and this is how I solved it, but I'll go into the specifics. So some obstacles was not enough time with my family while I was at LearnKey. Holding a full-time job, I was helping people with email at Rackspace, and then on my free time, um, I really didn't have any free time. I'd have to dedicate it to LearnKey. Um, I try to spread it as much as I can, or cram certain hours into certain days so that way I can have break days. So break days are definitely a must. Audio in the car, if you're able to get some sort of like audio book, or if you're able to get a video on YouTube that you can play and just have it playing on the side, you don't have to watch it, but just listen to it. That's how I would try to get my studying in. Sometimes I'd have to go and pick up my daughter from school, and in the parking lot while everybody's waiting in line, I would try to fit in a couple of videos. That was very tough as far as making time for my family, but I definitely suggest that you know, you should always try to make time for your family. You never know. Um, you know, you just never know. Family is always important. I never want to put anything in front of that. Burning out. I've had my fair share of burning out. I don't know how many people have tried to go study for such a long time, but sometimes I would just stop, and that was a big problem with me at the beginning when I started Network Plus and Security Plus. Um, I would burn out a lot. I didn't know how to study, so I would do it as much as I could. I stopped spending time with my family, and I think for a while I just quit. I think I fell behind for like 3 or 4 weeks for an entire month. I just didn't want to touch a computer. I was sick of it. So you definitely want to be careful about reaching that point. And if even if you are comfortable and you're saying, oh, you know, I'm okay, I'm gonna put in a couple more hours, well, just make sure you put in your breaks, even a mandatory break if needed. Mandatory breaks are always awesome. Also, they keep your mind off, and a lot of the times you end up absorbing some information, like you think about it while you're watching TV, and you're like, oh, okay, this thing clicked. Now I'm able to do that. Um, let's see, the rest of the day, maybe weekends, I would take a break. Yep, make it easier to swallow. And tiredness, I'd be tired all the time going to work, trying to study. So I just increase the breaks times, and I'll tell you how I increase the break times. But yeah, I love breaks, as you can tell. um, Failing at a test, that's definitely something that's happened to me quite a few times. You never get them all at the first time, and I don't think anybody should expect that. It's always good to have those expectations, but I don't think you should beat yourself up. But use the results. Every test, or mostly every test that I've taken at least, has given you some result sheets of you missed some questions in this area. make sure you hold on to that sheet of paper because it's very important for your second try. It actually gives you a goal to, or if anything, it minimizes the amount of content that you need to work on. So instead of, oh, I don't know what to study for the test, well, now that you have these results, now you have places that you can work at. Okay, so my tips for studying. My tips for studying. So think about where you are and where you want to be, right? Think about that person, that future you that's holding these certifications, right? Think about that person and let's create a link to that person. How do you get from point A to point B? And the way I create a link with my future self is by identifying my weaknesses, being honest with myself when you are doing that. You know, it's dangerous and to be overconfident, but I feel like it's more dangerous to be ignorant about your own skills. You should know where you're at, and nobody knows that better than yourself. So do what I call as a self-assessment, and that's definitely gonna help you know where you need to focus on from what I call the final stretch. Discipline is key. Stay to that schedule. Stay to that schedule, even the breaks. Stay to those breaks because once you have this rhythm going, what ends up happening is it becomes second nature. All of a sudden, you're just studying because that's part of what you do. It stops becoming less of a hassle as you go through your courses. Once you knock down one certificate, you tend to it's almost like steamrolling. It boosts your confidence. It does a hell of a job. And once you're more confident, you're just less worried. You're more excited to learn the next one. Oh my God, what can I do, man? I'm ready. Bring it on. Bring on the next one. Take one down off the checklist. And you're able to absorb the information when you're in a happier state, when morale's high. I mean, there's so much stuff you could do. So create a schedule to study and follow through with that. So this is what I call the self-assessment, where you identify your weaknesses and you be honest with yourself. On the left side is some objectives for the Security Plus test. And what I would do, this is all from, by the way, anything that I'm speaking about is what I personally have created on my own, and to this day I still follow it. I'm currently enrolled in undergraduate program to get a couple certificates. So I'm gonna have a certification test in 2 months, and I follow these to the dot for myself. And so I definitely practice this. So it gives you a goal. You see those check marks? Those are things that you might be familiar with. Oh, I'm familiar with screen filters, but maybe I'm not too sure about cable locks. And what I mean by familiar is, can you explain these concepts to someone who is new to the industry? Can you explain this to your significant other? Or maybe can you explain this to the younger generation? Is there someone that looks up to you? And would you be comfortable explaining the purpose of cable locks and why they're so important in security? If you are able to, and you're honest with yourself, then go ahead and put the check mark. If you think, I think I'm a little rusty on this, I always mix it up with another thing, or maybe it's just something that's a little bit foggy. I have to reiterate through those areas in the book several times to remember. Well, then don't check it off and keep that as a goal, because once you figure out which domain, they have it separated in domains, where these groups of objectives are here, there's another groups, and they all have certain themes. Once you figure out which domain seems to be your weakest, then you can put your focus on that for a little bit. It also helps break the exams into even smaller digestible parts. So instead of doing the whole exam, like 3.9 here on the left, instead of doing the entire thing and going over, oh, I'm not really good at security controls. Well, now you know which security controls. So now you're able to learn more about those security controls instead of having to, I don't want to say waste time, but spend time that could have been worth putting more towards biometrics and understanding how those work. And these are more tips. So take practice exams. You know, you want to make sure to supplement with video, reading, and learning, or maybe some practical application. If you're doing those Microsoft MTA certificates, there are ways that you can do practical application. And if you ever need help with setting up a virtual machine, let me know. I can help you out with that if you're doing the system administration side. Make sure you understand the question and the connection to the answer. Do your best to not accidentally memorize the question, and that's a big one. Everyone tends to be, or I want to say everyone, I want to put everyone in a box, but at least when I started, I thought I'm going to take this practice exam at the end of this module until I get 100. I'm going to do this Quizlet exam that I found online, and I'm going to learn it until I get 100. Well, it kind of backfires because yes, it increases your confidence. You know, oh, I got 100, you got 100. But you only practiced how to take that exam. You didn't practice on how to take any exam, and that's where the understanding comes from. Once you understand a certain subject, you're able to apply that in different ways. And anytime, there's one thing CompTIA likes to do is when you're doing the CompTIA CertMaster practice, they like to reword questions. And a lot of times you practice for that one question, but then they change and flip the words around, and it kind of catches you off guard because you only practiced to answer that one question. So you always want to avoid that. Use those practice exams sparingly. However many times you think you can until you stop. Once you start memorizing one question, I would say leave it alone. Move on to a different area, and come back to it when you can if you don't have any other tests. But definitely don't memorize it. Take the breaks. So I would study for 45 minutes, have a break time for 15. Break time could be whatever you want. Sometimes I would have a video playing on Hulu or Netflix on the side. I'd go on YouTube, or you know, I have a little room where I study in my bedroom, and so I would go outside to the living room for a couple minutes and just say hi to my wife and kids and say, hey, what are y'all doing? You know, catch up with them. Oh, I'm doing this over there, but it's going pretty good. And then once I'm ready, 15 minutes are over. All right, I'm back to studying. That's something that I learned in 68 whiskey training at in the Army. They always did a 45 minutes and then 15 minutes breaks, and we were able to cram in a lot in 2 weeks to take the NRENT. And I take that and brought it here, and it seems to work for me at least. It keeps me going. Do not practice to take the test, practice to be ready for any test. So that goes back to, are you comfortable? Regularly assess yourself with practice exams. And by what I mean by regularly is I myself would take a practice exam once every week. Some books come with practice exams that you get from what we order for the students at LearnKey. Sometimes like CertMaster Practice has some practice exams, depending on the cert. If anything, you can make, it's really tough, but if there aren't any questions that you can find for practice exams, just go back to that self-assessment. That's a good way to kind of do that. But the practice exam should give you some sort of feedback. If it does it automatically, then that's great. If it doesn't, then do your best to create that results page. What questions are you not familiar with? Okay, well, instead of studying what that question says, how about you study what that question's about? Maybe there was a question about, let's see, Kerberos, and you didn't know what to answer for that one. Well, instead of learning about that specific answer on Kerberos, how about you just learn a lot more stuff about Kerberos and how it works, and so that way you can explain what Kerberos does, and anytime a question comes out about Kerberos and any characteristic of it, you know the answer. Every time you fail, see that as an opportunity to build yourself, review those exam results. After a while, once you're taking these assessments, you'll see that your weaknesses will become your strengths. You get better, way better at that area that you weren't necessarily good at a week ago. And that was definitely helpful to me. I ended up seeing that in some areas where I would get 40 the week prior, 40% correct, I would get 80%. And so those are really great ways to improve. And they weren't on the same questions either. So yeah, that was really good. So this is what a schedule would look like for me. So week one, I would do either a baseline exam or the self-assessment, whichever one you can do first. I would find my weak domains, identify the objectives that I'm not comfortable with, which are the, doing that self-assessment, and then I'd study that area and those objectives that were highlighted. And on the last day, I'd rest before I take my second exam, and I would rinse and repeat that as I call it the final stretch, because there are some courses that we put you through, sessions I think they're called, on Online Expert, and you definitely want to take care of those. But once you're towards the end of the exam, it's a lot more hands-off. We give you more of the preparations to practice for the test, and so the schedule, this is the schedule that I would follow. Study for 6 and rest for 1. Any questions on this schedule or anything I've said before? I think this is the middle of the presentation. Yeah.
No, this is so helpful. I'm learning so much, even though I've been an online student for years. So thank you so much for sharing this.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to move on. Okay, so the next one is a support item. Support item, cheat sheet. Keep that on you, right? So this cheat sheet, make sure you write down anything you tend to mix up. If you forget it all the time, if you ever make a comment about that a subject, you randomly flip to a page on the book and you're like, oh my God, I always forget that one. Write that one down. Put that on your cheat sheet. Even if you just learn to remember it, put it in your cheat sheet, because you never know when it comes up to the test. Maybe a key word that summarizes some areas for the last minute. TACX versus radius. These are some common ones. Kerberos and new technology land manager. IPsec. What is AH and ESP? Who knows until you write it down? You might forget it. I would also bring the books in the car and I would read when I'm parked at that exam location, and I would do that for 15 minutes. I would go over my cheat sheet, try to see if I could get all this short-term memory and jam all this in there. So when I get to the questions and start taking them, hopefully some of those things lasted just long enough to answer the question and use them. That's what I would do. And also for the books, a lot of the times what would happen is I'd have regrets. I would always have regrets whenever it's time to take the test that I didn't pay enough attention to a certain area. And I don't know if that's happened to anyone else. I've seen some people that I'm familiar with here in the room. And if you have a regret, that's the point of the assessment. The point of the assessment is to you realize that, man, I'm really not that good at this area. Let's beat it about a week or 2 weeks earlier than you finding out in the parking lot that maybe you should have studied this area, because that tends to be the thing. You want to beat it, but I also have the books just in case, on the cheat sheet, maybe something that I wrote down just didn't click and I need to look over really quick before the test. Then I'd go take the test. I would also watch a motivational video. This is a link. It's called the You versus You, the Journey speech. It's a motivational speech on YouTube, and I would watch that all the time, or any motivational video, whatever puts you in the zone. I would watch that, and I would do that before the test. But even if you just want to get in the zone and studying, and maybe you are losing traction or losing momentum during your studying times, watch a motivational video to put you back on track. Motivational videos tend to be a really great thing for me. That one, my Sergeant Miller taught me that for the PT tests. And okay, as you can tell by the picture, I'm not the most, athletically adept, so I needed that motivation as much as I could, and so I would watch those videos all the time, and that's another thing I brought into studying, and it really helped me, especially on the drive there. It made me, sometimes you wake up a little tired, or maybe you scheduled your exam later in the afternoon and some things came up, and now you're like, man, how am I supposed to come take the test? I'm just not here. I should have scheduled it earlier, or maybe I should have scheduled it tomorrow. Or watch a motivational video. Hopefully it clears your head. There's also some mental exercises, like concentration exercises that you can do to just clear your mind. And when you get to the test, it's all about the test. And so however you get put into the zone, I like motivational videos, but get in the zone before you get in there. It's that speech in the locker room thing before a football game. Get ready. So my experience as a security professional, well, I learned that there was I coming from the Army, I ended up learning that there's a stigma that's, if something is wrong, you go to security or go to IT, it's always IT's problem. It's always IT's fault. So, just be ready to troubleshoot all the time, regardless of where you're at. I learned that there's system administrators that have nothing to do with users' computers, and they end up calling them and telling them, hey, can you help me out? And you help out somebody troubleshoot why their Excel isn't working correctly, why their formula isn't working correctly. And that's not even part of your job. It's not part of your job, and you're doing these things. But I mean, if you help out because you know the solution. You most likely do. So just always remember that you're probably always going to troubleshoot from now on once you're in IT. The newbie always gets put on the side. That seems to be the thing. Not a lot of trust when you first get in there. So what I do is, don't be afraid to ask questions. Learn the job and learn it well. There's definitely a difference of people, certain people that come in complacent, or maybe they got the job because they didn't really care. It's just a thing for them, and they don't. I'm not too sure. When I got at my job, I actually became the trainer in 6 months because I memorized everything. I tried to make sure I was really good at it, and I guess as new people came in, I tried to be what I wished was provided for me when I came into the company. And so I wish somebody actually was training me and did it with a smile and wasn't depressed and saying, hey, so this is what we're going to do. Go ahead and read these notebooks. All right. And yeah, this ticket here, that's not really fun. Uh, I don't, that's not how I do it. I need motivation. Hey, this is your job. Hey, welcome to the team. Let's get down to it. I wrote down some notes, but here you go. Watch me. Take some notes down. If you have a question, let me know. Tap my shoulder, and we'll get through this. And have them sit next to you. That I love that sort of thing. Um, Anticipate that you may not have your favorite resource at your job to reach out to when it gets tough. Sometimes some situation is going to happen, and this happened to me in email. I think it was some company, some guy at a company was yelling at me and saying, "Why am I getting spam?" And all this and that. And I figured out that he got his account was hacked. It was compromised, and he started yelling at me saying, "Oh my God, this shouldn't be done. I thought Rackspace y'all took care of this, and I'm gonna sue you." And he was really yelling, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I mean, I kind of want to yell back at this guy, but I don't know what to do. I don't think you're supposed to do that at my job. So I ended up having, it took a while, but I ended up finding out that, I was supposed to tell him to go speak to legal, and especially if they're threatening to sue, just hang up the phone. Don't speak with them. Say, go speak with legal then, because then I'm not going to speak to you, because it's on a recorded line. I'm not, you don't want to compromise the company by saying stuff. So I ended up doing that, and later on he called and said, sorry. Um, you know, but I found that out through the website. So you just always be ready. Have your little resources out there, like in case you're, whenever you do go and do help desk, if your trainer might not be there, or whoever is your mentor for that day might not be there, and have that ready. Also, when you want to find a mentor, um, a mentor, and I mean like outside of the job, to guide you with career advice, where you want to go, what you want to be, and give you steps or at least some guidance of how to achieve that. I forgot who said it, but it was, um, don't ask what I do now, ask what I did to do what I do now. And he was a rich guy. I don't know who said that, but that's what I do. Just try to follow find several people, see what they've done to become successful in their career, and try to emulate that, because after a while you start noticing that a lot of them either tend to do continuing education all the time. They're always in school or something, or they're always learning, and somehow they end up making the right choices. Some bad ones, but sometimes, a lot of times, they're good. It's a lot of happy accidents. And yeah, continue learning new technologies and techniques. You always want to better yourself. Yeah, those are all things that you want to do. Don't be afraid to automate. If you are using Excel, it's always great. Excel is a good thing. It makes your job easier. If you're good at programming, make all your simple tasks automated. It's always great. It looks really cool. Don't be afraid to make the processes that are at your new job better. Say you come into to your new role in help desk, and you found that there's a way to map hard drives to a client's computer a lot faster than you having to remote into the computer. That's actually a thing. There's our commands on the command line that you could just run, and it'll map the computer, map the drive. That's a big thing. Whatever you can, try to make it easier. Don't be afraid to streamline the processes, and document everything. Anything you do at your job, make sure you write it down. And I'm not speaking about like for official purposes. It's for yourself, because a lot of the times you're going to transfer position, or you'll get as you are going through LearnKey, maybe you do currently have a job in IT, you might get a promotion. You want to make sure you have everything documented, so the person before you can fill in, and you're that resource that you wish you were when you came in at the job. You wish that somebody had some documents out there for you to read, and that had personal advice on, hey, this department works in this manner. So if you ever have an issue with this software, reach out to something Thornton. He's really great at this software. He might help you out. Things like that. Tricks of the trade. Those are very helpful for everyone, and also it helps you to remember as you are working, like, oh, what was that one thing that I did, or why did I automate this? Oh, it's because it gets done this way. It's always helpful to have that one little binder next to you. Well, at least for me. Okay, so enough of the work-related stuff. I learned a lot about IT once I started working where I work now, and there is a whole new world out there that I was never familiar with. So the first things first is DEF CON. DEF CON is a convention that they have. They call it a hacker convention, and it's world renowned. It's very famous. It's nationwide. They have this capture the flag event where people from all over the globe come and go into a competition. So you'll see these people on the top right. That's the competition going on. These are all elite hackers that were able to qualify, and you get to watch them hack each other and bring each other's servers down. But there's also other things if you're not into hacking. On the left side, there's a tamper evident village. And these villages are like little communities of like niche sort of things. There's lock picking, there's blue team village, red team village, there's a wireless village, there is radio frequency, I think it's called like ham village, or well, anyways, there's a tamper evident village, and they actually have a bomb that you can defuse. It doesn't actually set off, but it's very famous that there are very few people have defused this bomb, and they give you a couple minutes to go try that out. They have little stands everywhere. It usually takes place at Vegas, so that's at the bottom right. That's one of the casinos that it was in. And late at night, they have little game shows. So that's the picture at the bottom center. They had a little game show for Jeopardy, but they do all kinds of things every night. It's very fun. There's a big community of different people out there, and it's very fun. Very fun, very, very involving, and that's one thing that I found out about it. It was really cool. DC groups. So back from DEF CON, people want to continue the whole tradition of DEF CON. So there's actually groups out there if you want to, if you're into it. The DC groups here are DC 281 and DC 713. These are all little communities uh, of people who like DEF CON and things about it. So they do lock picking, they do all kinds of stuff. So if you ever just want to involve yourself with the group in your area, just put DC and then your area code for like a phone number. So in Houston, some of the area codes are 281 and 713. So if you search on Google DC281 or DC713, you can find out who's in charge. If you have any questions, you can also, at the end, there's an email. You can email me and I'll see if I can find you a website where you can find the DC groups. They're very inclusive and they have activities. A lot of these people are IT professionals. I think in the group that I'm in, one person works at IBM, another person does networking for the town where I'm in Webster, and then another person's actually a DJ. But he really loves the community, so he learned this DJ learned how to operate radios. So he has a ham radio license where he's able to put stuff on the airwaves and speak to people. It's really cool stuff like that. Podcasts. If you ever want to continue learning about what's going on in recent events, or maybe stories about different jobs out there in IT, Darknet Diaries does that. A lot of people, that's at the bottom left, Jack Reciter brings guests over that speak about their experiences doing a certain job, such as breaking into a company, which they were allowed to do. McAfee does hackable, where they try to hack some things that you don't ever think about. So I think one of the things that they hacked was a coffee pot. Apparently, if you have your coffee pot, smart coffee pot out there, you're able to take it off the network, have it connect to your evil twin, and then get that Wi-Fi password off of it. So now people are able to go into your network and just from outside on the porch. Smashing Security does a lot about news. The Joe Rogan Experience is not related, so that just happens to be grouped in there. Sorry about that. But a whole bunch of other stuff. These are all a list of things that I definitely enjoy listening to. There's not enough time in the world to listen to all of them, but if you have 8 minutes of your 8 minutes to spare, Cybersecurity Today, he does a really great job about the current events and what's going on with different countries and things like that. So that's on the left side. Twitter. Twitter is actually a thing for IT. There's a lot of big names out there in our community. Once you're in IT, you're part of this community. Believe it or not, you're not alone. You're not just doing IT as a job. Apparently, it's a whole culture out there. So these are some of the people that are big out there, and there's a lot more. Not just these. There's John Hammond. He was invited to do the All Army Cyber Stakes. So he went along with I think other units. He was able to go and compete with other units in the Army for this cyber capture the flag competition. And so this is him doing some videos on what challenges he was able to do. Alyssa Miller, she's a very great speaker at a lot of conferences. So if you follow her, a lot of the time she'll post. And right now, a lot of conferences are going virtual and they're becoming free. So you're able to go to a conference that was, I think I attended one called B-Sides. B-Sides is very worldwide. They have one in Amsterdam. They have one in Chicago, Knoxville, Virginia. I'm not too sure where Knoxville goes, but that's the one that I attended to virtually. And she got to speak about deep fakes, and it was really great. Maddie Stone, she's very famous for reverse engineering. She's really good at Android, and she could reverse engineer malware really well and find out what's going on with certain software. So she likes to post this kind of stuff anytime she finds something cool. And then Under the Breach on the right, he likes to do a lot of like breakthrough news stories where like right here, there was a Ethereum hacker that apparently is selling a database, and he was able to find out that every screenshots and things, and he'll find those resources and put it out there and let you know like, hey, this is what's going on. I think not too long ago, he's getting into some trouble right now because he was posting about news that this hacker just put out some information about a certain company, and that company didn't want their name out there, so now he's in trouble because they're going after him, saying that he was part of the leak. He's the one that leaked the information, but he never did anything. He was just reporting on it, and he reports on it through Twitter. It's really cool stuff. These are just a few, but there's quite a bit. There's places where if you want to apply practical application, if you want to learn more about Linux, do try Hack Me. That's on the left. They teach you how to use Linux. So if you ever need to get that experience on there, put that under your belt, learning Linux. There's also different things that you can learn, software. If you're ever curious about how Metasploit works, there's about 15 pages of free room. They call them rooms, these little classrooms that you can be a part of, and you can increase your knowledge on certain software. And this is all free. They do a really good job, and I think it's really great. You can learn basic pen testing, introductory to researching, things like that. It's really great. On the right side is called Hack the Box. If you ever want to go to that next level, say you started learning and just for fun you want to, they call it pwn. You want to go pwn a machine or own a machine. These are some machines that Hack the Box offers for free that you can try to hack into. They also give you instructions on how to do it. There's videos out there that you can practice if you ever just want to get into that kind of stuff. And that's about it. This is my summary page, but also my question page. Just summary, just be honest, find your weakness, take lots of breaks, become involved in our community, because once you're in IT, you're in our community. We all love tech. I found that I'm not, there's people that are way more passionate about this stuff than I am, but they still feel very inclusive, just like those people I mentioned on Twitter. Like, man, they're leagues ahead of me, but they make it very fun to be part of the community. They help each other out. There's all kinds of places where they hang out, and even online. It's really cool. And have fun and enjoy the ride once you join, because it's really great. I love IT, and it's a great place to be right now, because it's very fun. It's very fun, and I like fun. So, and that's it. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you, Michael.
Yes. Do we have any questions? You can put it in the text chat or come off mute. And
is he going to share his PowerPoint?
Yeah,
Michael?
we have this session recorded, so we'll share the PowerPoint and the session on the forums.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Kelly.
All right.
No questions.
Okay, so if you want to reach out to me, thank you everyone for your service and for what everyone's done for our country. And if you want to find me, you can find me on LinkedIn here with this link, or on Twitter @RottenSecurity. And that's my email if you ever want to reach out to me and just learn more if you're curious, or if you need help tutoring. I do one-on-one sessions as well.
You are wonderful, Michael. Thank you so much. This has been so informative, and thank you for putting this together and sharing with us your experience.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. This was fun.
Good. Awesome. And as Michael said, he does one-on-one tutoring sessions as well, probably in various areas. Is that correct, Michael? Not just limited to security?
Right. Yes, I do.
Okay, awesome. So if you want to reach out, here's his contact information. We recommend, the employability team recommends that everyone is on LinkedIn and connect with people, find that mentor like Michael had suggested. Also reach out to your employability team, me or Jess Martin, and we can help you get set up on those LinkedIns, get your resumes going, and help you with that mentoring as well. Well, thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you next month for the employability team session.